Hey guys, what's going on? It's the YYfilms, and I want to ask you a serious question. Do you love being strong-armed into a brand new meta you never wanted or ever thought about? No? Well, let us tell you what Blizzard is trying to do. And when I mean us, I got somebody special with me.
Hi guys, Cannibal Mailman of Mailman Movies here, telling you why your free-to-play game is about to fist you sideways.
Yep. If you don't know who this nerd is, you should go check out the previous Smite-related content, because we did a whole bunch of stuff together. So he's not new.
Indeed. So, a basic rundown of what's going on. Hearthstone's format is changing dramatically. There are going to be two game modes now. There's the standard game mode, which has a set pool of cards confined to that year's rotation. That's all classic cards and all solo adventures and expansion packs that have come out within that yearly cycle. That means, in this spring, when they launch this new format, you will no longer be able to use Nox Ramus cards or Goblins vs. Gnomes cards in standard mode. In addition, you can no longer buy Nox Ramus if you don't already know it, and Goblins v Gnomes packs will no longer be dust only. In addition, the Nox cards are now available for dust. So if you just dropped $25 to get all the wings of Nox, because that's the only way to get the cards, but you have a ton of dust lying around, well, I'm sorry, you've just been screwed out of $25. In addition, there is Wild Mode, which they keep putting out there as where anything goes. And in reality, Wild Mode is just what we have right now. All cards available, use whatever you've got in your collection, and play the game. There will be ranked versions for both of these, which will operate independently. However, you will only get rewards at the end of the season for one, whichever one you are ranked higher in. Arena, so far, appears to be unaffected by these changes. The card pool is still everything, and you still draft your decks as you normally would. However, there's a lot of bad that comes with these.
As I said before, the meta of a game should just evolve organically as new cards come into play. Kind of like as Pokemon games progress, there's new Pokemon and we find new strategies. Or let's say another card game like Yu-Gi-Oh!, where although they add more stuff, the old stuff stays relevant and they welcome new creations. But Blizzard thought, hey guys, I see all those cool cards you mounted. No. You're gonna play with these other ones.
And it's incredibly frustrating because there are still lots of Goblins vs. Gnome cards that I'd like to get and add to my collection, including legendaries, which take a ton of dust to get. And it's just all very frustrating because all the cards that I've gotten for that are pretty much invalidated. And I know you can say, well, just play Wild Mode, but here's another thing. All competitive tournament-based, local, or higher-up levels for Hearthstone will now take the standard format. And this harkens back to something that Magic the Gathering has been doing for a very long time, and I used to play competitively in tournaments, mostly just on a small local level. Every year, they cycle out the cards as well. The only exception is if an old card is reprinted with a new illustration, you can use your copy of the old card since it technically exists in the current meta. But the reason they do this is so that every year, if you want to continue to play competitively, you have to keep buying the new expansions and the new decks. The thing is, these are real cards. They at some point need to stop printing that pack. So while it seems somewhat greedy, it also makes sense to eventually stop printing that run of cards. The thing with Hearthstone is that nothing about it is physical. It's all digital. They could make as many cards as they wanted. There is no real scarcity. And by removing these, Blizzard has created artificial scarcity, which forces you to spend either lots of money or lots of gold on the new expansions when they come out, not because you want to, but because you have to keep in line with standard competitive play. And in addition, all the cards you already have, you will know will have an expiration date at some point, with the exception being classic cards as of right now.
This also creates, as he said, a little bit of scarcity in the thought of, let's say a brand new player comes in. Someone like me, I purchase maybe a few packs here of this type, a few packs here of that other type, and I scrape together a deck. Sure, maybe that can work in wild mode, but people previous to that will already have amounted a great supply of cards by just simply playing, or they'll have to turn their eyes to the brand new, super cool, only new cards allowed structure, and they have to really divvy themselves up between wild or structured, and that limits them a lot.
So here's the problem for new players. The thing is this, you must devote yourself almost entirely to standard mode by buying the new pack so that you stay in with that, but if you're a pre-existing player, you're probably going to dominate wild mode because you're going to have more cards. So this creates even a bigger problem because the later you join Hearthstone, the later in the yearly cycle or the later year itself, you're going to be forced to play primarily standard mode because people who have been playing since the previous yearly cycle are going to have a lot more cards in wild mode, and you're going to be at a distinct disadvantage in one or the other. You're either going to have a lot of old cards no longer available in standard mode, or you're going to be forced to buy a lot of new cards and be behind on wild mode. Only if you've been around for a very long time and already have tons of cards and tons of dust or tons of gold, or are willing to shell out a lot of money, are you going to be able to stay viable in both modes. And what feels particularly lazy is this. A lot of people have suggested that part of the reason wild mode and things like that are existing now is because Blizzard does not want to or cannot balance the cards that already exist, rather than when creating new cards have to worry about how it's going to combo, synergize, or be absolutely broken or make a card completely unviable in a previous expansion. They don't have to worry about that because it's going to cycle out. So we can make a new expansion that comes out in the spring that could combo with, say, I don't know, Dr. Boom, who's already pretty overpowered as it is, and make him totally unstoppable, but we don't have to worry about it because he will not be available in standard play. However, you get to wild mode, and the balance goes completely out the window because cards are going to start comboing and synergizing in ways that they were never intended to in standard mode. In addition, once cards are thrown into wild mode outside of standard mode, it's far less likely that Blizzard will actually patch and balance them. So anything that goes into wild mode broken, it's highly likely that it will stay broken, essentially forever, because it's out of the purview of true competitive play.
Another factor of their laziness and unwillingness to balance stuff is, for example, I'm sure if you've played for even a little bit, there are some cards in your library which you'll look at when you're making a deck and you just scoff or laugh at them. It's like, pfft, what are these trash tier cards? No one's ever going to use them. Fun fact, now you'll be forced to use them. So if there's terrible new garbage cards coming out in the newest expansions, and if you want to play the new standard mode, well, you're going to have to give those trash cards love and try to force them to work together. Because guess what? Up yours, wild mode can still do what it wants, and it can scoff as much as it wants. But the new stuff? You're going to have to play with garbage, and you're going to like it.
And a lot of the beauty in the release of a new expansion is that cards that previously seemed unviable become really good because they can synergize with a new mechanic or a new effect in ways that you otherwise couldn't see. A good example, Wailing Spirit on Druid was good for silencing effects that occurred upon death, but with the introduction of Darnassus Aspirant, that gives you a mana crystal that you lose upon death, silencing that with Old Wailing Spirit from Naxxramas became a really good combo. It's the beauty of two different sets working together to create something new. Now, that set can only work with something within its own yearly cycle as far as standard mode is concerned. And it's really sad because I don't think we're going to see as much innovation as before. Because whereas currently right now, admittedly, play mode, constructed anyway, is dominated by a set few decks like Secret Paladin or Mech Mage, things of that nature. Dr. Boom is played in pretty much every deck if you have him. While standard mode is supposed to keep things fresh and get rid of a lot of those old decks, because a lot of the cards that create such combos like Quartermaster, Dr. Boom itself, Wailing Spirit, as I previously mentioned, are going to be out of the picture. But rather than really create innovation, it's going to be very brief innovation where people scramble to find decks based purely off of the cards that are available, before it essentially settles into a new meta of a select like 5 constructed decks based off the cards that are available. We're not really spicing the game up as much as we're rotating what decks everyone are going to use because they're limited incredibly by the number of cards available. Whereas if everything was available and a new expansion was released and cards countered some of those old overpowered combos and decks, we could continue to see the evolution of new decks, and maybe people would still play some of the old stuff and there'd be some new stuff. Whereas now we are going to have just 6 different decks that everyone plays.
In addition to limiting decks, Blizzard thought it'd be a really funny up yours joke to include more deck slots, so now you have more deck slots for the decks you can't ever play. Now, as of course, it's easy to complain, and as the subreddits are catching fire because this is a terrible idea, and as the pros are brown-nosing Blizzard saying like, oh my god, yes, make the meta better, we have actually come up with some maybe viable solutions to this so-called problem.
So here's the thing. The thing that upsets me the most is the fact that old adventures, Nox, and Goblins vs. Gnome are no longer going to be available to me. It doesn't bug me as much that I can't use them in standard mode, as much as it's becoming much more difficult to acquire them. As someone who plays fairly casually and hasn't been playing forever, I don't have mountains upon mountains of dust to craft an entire series of cards. I still want to collect them, either to use in wild mode so I can keep up with that and maybe try out some old stuff or combos with old stuff and the new cards. I want to be able to get those with packs. I want to be able to collect them all. So why not discount the packs once they're out of the yearly cycle? And I don't want to make people too mad who are like, well, I invested a kajillion gold into these and now you're getting them for less. Well, I mean, I can use them in less game modes now. So why not knock it down to 80 or even 75 gold? Or make the, if you don't want to do packs and you insist on doing craft only, lower the dust requirements so I know that I'm crafting a card I can only use in one game mode. It might as well not cost the full price of dust if I still want to have it. I don't mind if we kept like the full dust requirements for expansion cards since they were previously available only in expansions, but the ones that you can only get in packs, complete RNG as to whether you got it or not. Please give me a way to still get it. Even if I can't use it in everything, I'd still like to have it, especially the legendaries. There's just a deep satisfaction from opening a pack and getting a legendary. Whether you could use it in standard mode or not, it'd still be awesome.
Another solution that actually just kind of came to me just because, if Blizzard wants to continue going the complete lazy, I really want your money route, they could even make a brand new pack, being like a crazy bundle or something, and it has a chance to drawing every single card from every single expansion, and it'll be extremely hard to get like the legendaries from the single player modes, but hey, at least there's a tiny minuscule chance.
That idea is not as far-fetched as you would think. It would be completely reasonable for them to release just a pack and make it normal cost, or even maybe slightly more than cost. That's just a card pool. Its card pool for that pack is every expansion that's been put into wild mode that is no longer standard. You could even call it the wild pack, and it literally just has the accessibility to any previously existing card no longer in standard mode, so that while you can't be as specific as saying, well, I want an Ox card or I want a GVG card, but there is a way to get it.
But as along with these changes, we can't really tell Blizzard no. They're just gonna go ahead and do what they want because large big game company no listen to you, little man. So even as much as I dislike this, I think I'll continue playing Hearthstone until it becomes full retard and I just lose all possible hope and faith.
And it really bugs me because I think in the past, Blizzard's been a great game company. I think it still makes great games. Recently, Diablo got a really large update for free. I think they maintained their games fairly well. I will admit that the most recent Warcraft expansion, Warlords of Draenor, I felt was really rushed. and was not as good as the prior ones, but in the past they have made some really great stuff. It just makes me sad to see that they've taken the free-to-play game model here and they're kind of contorting it to the real card model. It's not the same, Blizzard. I don't have physical copies. When I throw money at you, I don't have cards I can hold in my hand. You can't create this fake scarcity. It's really weird, and I hope that they see there are other ways before things go downhill. WoW subscriptions dropped after Draenor came out and was a disappointment. I hope that Hearthstone doesn't take a massive hit after this. I hope they rectify any problems we might have. And I hope they actually listen to the feedback of the community, not just the pros and the people who are big icons of Hearthstone, but just the everyman who plays it. I hope they maybe take in some ideas from all across social media and maybe, just maybe, adjust it so more people are happy. So that's all I've got to say on the matter. We'll have to wait and see if things go completely as originally planned, how the community takes it, and how Blizzard reacts to any backlash that creates.
Yeah, so to recap, this video is not simply just to shred Blizzard apart and say, oh, you're bad people. No, this was just brought to you as a little educational tool because the pros are leading you a little bit astray, making you think this is God's gift to the world when it's really not, and this is maybe foreshadowing of sad and horrible things to see. Let's hope not, but I hope you were well informed, that you have enjoyed what you saw, and maybe in the future, if shit bothers us more, we'll talk shit about it.
So thank you for your patronage. Feel free to leave any sort of opinion you have, whether you think standard mode's good or the pack rotation is bad, or solutions you have in the comments below, and join us next time.
And tell how much of a nerd this nerd is.
Yep.